The faction system in XDefiant is one way that this game is going to set itself apart. A lot of the game is very similar to a lot of other shooters out there. It is kind of going back to the roots of that arcade shooter, but the faction system is a little bit of a new take on it, and there is so much more potential for new factions in the future. So today we're going to be going over some factions that I would love to see come to the game down the line. If you are interested in XDefiant, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. I'm going to continue to cover the game leading up to launch, and obviously plenty more content after launch, so make sure you don't miss out. But with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. Now, firstly, for those of you guys who aren't aware, maybe you haven't played the beta, for example, the faction system is essentially like a hero or class type of system in XDefiant. You essentially choose your character, which are pretty much factions from other Ubisoft games. So for example, The Division, Far Cry, a lot of those games are sort of in XDefiant themselves, and they each have their own abilities. Currently in the game, we have the Libertad from Far Cry 6, the Phantoms from Ghost Recon, the Echelon from Splinter Cell, the Cleaners from The Division, and a DedSec from Watch Dogs. Within each of those factions, there are then two different characters that you can choose from who each have a slightly different ability than the other one. And so realistically, there is currently 5 factions in the game and essentially 10 different classes when you think about it like that. Now, the most obvious thing is that we are most likely going to get more factions from those games that I already mentioned. So for example, we have the Libertad from Far Cry 6, but there could easily be more factions from Far Cry 6 itself. You could then also have previous Far Cry games, so you could have the Pirates from Far Cry 3, for example. There are so many different options there, and they could just continue to add different Far Cry factions into the game. The same sort of thing goes with The Division. There are different factions within the Division games, and there's just a lot more sort of factions to choose from the games that we already have in the game. And there are a lot of really good speculations out there on who we could see. But the thing is, we could also get brand new games being added to XDefiant, which is where it definitely gets a little bit more exciting. Now, the most obvious one to me, and this is one that I would literally bet the house on, and this is Rainbow Six. It is literally Ubisoft's most played shooter, and there is absolutely no doubt in my mind they probably already have this done, and it will be launching in one of the seasons. I dare say they've already got this pretty much finished and ready to go, because it would be one of the biggest selling points, being able to sort of cross-platform or cross-market XDefiant and Rainbow Six. There is so much they could do there. They could obviously just add individual characters from Rainbow Six Siege. There's also the older Rainbow Six games, Rainbow Six Vegas, Rainbow Six Vegas 2. They could bring in Team Rainbow from those games, even a lot of the enemy factions from those games as well. So there's so many different options there with Rainbow Six, and similar to what I mentioned about the previous factions, it doesn't just have to be one faction from Rainbow Six. It could be literally like 10. There are so many different ones that they could use there, and I dare say Rainbow Six will feature very, very heavily in XDefiant down the line. Now, moving on from that though, we do actually have some, I guess, more wacky options here. A lot of people have really heavily speculated about Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. Now, I know that sounds insane, and to be honest, it kind of is, but it is one of the biggest games that we currently know about. It is going to be essentially a shooter, and although it is way more far-fetched than the rest of the factions in the game, it is definitely a possibility. How they would go about it, I'm not too sure. Whether they would literally put avatars in the game, that would maybe be a little bit too wacky, I'm not too sure, but they could have characters from Avatar. We know that there are still the humanoid characters in that franchise, so they could add those, or yeah, they could actually add avatars to the game, which would be pretty insane. But personally, I think it would be pretty cool to see, as long as it doesn't get, I guess, too wacky. There is even a lot of speculation that it could come with avatar maps as well. That's the good thing with all of these factions. They could kind of have like seasonal content. So when they add the avatar faction, they could then add like avatar weapons and avatar maps and stuff like that to the game. Obviously, that would depend on whether they do go down that line, but it would be the same with Rainbow Six, for example. They could actually add like previous Rainbow Six maps into the game, or at least inspired by those maps. So there is definitely a lot of potential there, and if they do add something like Avatar, I think those maps will be absolutely insane. There is insane possibility there when it comes to the Avatar stuff. Now, the next one on the list is probably just as wacky as Avatar, to be honest, but if Avatar is possible, then why isn't Assassin's Creed possible as well? Seeing assassins run around with weapons would probably look equally as clapped as seeing avatars in the game, to be honest. Seeing like Ezio running around with a freaking assault rifle, that would look a bit silly. But they could also go down the same line as what I said with Avatar, where they maybe use like the Abstergo characters who are from like the present day rather than the, you know, medieval assassins. They could go down that path as well. I definitely just think it is kind of a missed opportunity if they don't use Assassin's Creed in one way or another. I don't know the actual figures, but I'm going to assume Assassin's Creed is Ubisoft's biggest franchise of all time. And so having a game where they've got kind of like crossover characters in one single game, it would feel kind of weird to leave out Assassin's Creed as well. But again, it isn't really a shooter. It's not the same type of game, so it could be a little bit more far-fetched than Avatar, simply because Avatar is at least a shooter. It's got weapons or guns, I should say, in that game. And yes, technically technically speaking, Assassin's Creed does have guns in some of the games, but it's not quite the same. You guys know what I mean. But regardless, I do think it is actually something that is really possible. It just depends on how wacky they want to get with XDefiant. Now, some of these might sound incredibly dumb to you guys, and to be honest, even making this list, I was kind of thinking, is this pushing it a little bit too far? I'm not too sure, but the thing with XDefiant is it isn't trying to be super realistic. This game is meant to be fun, it's meant to be goofy, it's meant to be different. It's not trying to be Call of Duty or Battlefield or something where it kind of sticks a lot closer to realism, even though when you look at Call of Duty, even they have got some wacky stuff in their games, mostly when it comes to Warzone and stuff, but they've got like superhero characters in there, they've got like anime girls and all that kind of thing. It definitely gets a bit wacky in those games as well, and XDefiant isn't trying to be realistic, so there's no reason this game can't kind of go down the same path, even being potentially a bit more wacky with stuff like Avatar. I will say I'm kind of somewhat concerned when it comes to factions being a little bit over the top. I think it would kind of get weird if, like I said, there's literal avatars running around in XDefiant. It might take a little bit to get used to, but I do think if it is done well, it could actually pay off really well for the game. It could be a very unique experience where this is literally just like a big crossover shooter with regular humans, and there's avatars, and there's like assassins and all these weird different combinations. I think it could actually pay off if it is done well. Whether it is done well or not, I'm not too sure. And obviously this is all just speculation if we even do see stuff like avatars or Assassin's Creed characters. But I think if they were to do that well, it could definitely pay off very, very well for the game. Either way, I'm very keen to hear your thoughts as well as which factions you guys want to see. Be sure to let me know down in the comments, and like I said, keep your eyes peeled for more XDefiant content. On top of that as well, be sure to check out my new gaming channel. I am currently covering Starfield over there, trying to put out 3 or 4 videos a week covering that game, and we will be doing a setup tour at 1K subscribers as well. So if you want to see the setup that I do all my editing and stuff on, and all the cool stuff in the background, be sure to hit that subscribe button on the new gaming channel and keep your eyes peeled for that setup tour. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.